phase. Thank you.
Åsa, thank you so much for the welcoming words. Nice to see everybody here again this morning, and I hope we've managed to get everybody into the room. We thought there was only one room, but there often tends to be a second room somewhere out there. So we're all gathering, I think. Anything to signal on that? We're okay? Nobody? Okay, aware of anything waiting? Okay, good. We're all together, it seems. Excellent. I would now like to hand over to Anno de Vanse from the European Commission, who's the head of water, who has been supporting this program since its very beginning, and who's very, been very helpful in guiding us also in thinking about the second phase. Anno, please, before you begin, I would just like to know if you're able to stay for a few minutes afterwards. Can you give us a sense of your time frame? Because I know that there are some people who might wish to ask you some questions directly before we move on to the next part. So perhaps you could just as you begin, just let us know how long you're planning to stay, and we will schedule things accordingly.
Okay, thank you very much, Julie, and thank you for inviting me. It's always a pleasure to talk on this program. I will try to stay a bit longer this morning, so I can take some time to answer questions, and so that should be a possibility. So first of all, I mean, as you know, we have a lot of difficulties to achieve the SDG 6, and it has been too slow, so far. And I think it's good to remind to our European partners and colleagues that in some regions of the world, and notably in sub-Saharan Africa, in peri-urban areas and in secondary cities, the number of people not having access to water and to basic services is increasing and not decreasing anymore. And this is the result of a lot of issues that we faced in the secondary cities, notably at the level of the capacity of water operators to manage and of local authorities also, together with the local authorities, the infrastructures to maintain them and to develop them at the pace that is necessary to catch up with the population growth of these areas. So we see that there is truly a huge, a huge challenge that is facing us. And this is why we are trying to engage as much as possible in this program, the WOP program, because we have ambitious targets for our actions. Together with the EIB, we committed to connect 70 million people by 2030 to water access and sanitation. And for that, we need to have strong, efficient, well-organized, transparent water operators that can mobilize investments at scale while preserving the interest of the poorest, participating to reducing inequalities in society and preserving the resource. And it's not nothing, yeah? It's quite a lot altogether. So it's really a huge challenge, and you know it very well. And for that, we need to have strong water operators. So the EU, in this context, is currently supporting the EU Water Operators Partnership. It's a program of 9 million euros, 4-year initiative, managed by the GWOPA Secretariat, as you know. So, and this program has been uploaded by all our partners, the mentors, you basically, the mentees, the NGOs, the development banks in Europe, in Asia, in Latin America, and even our evaluators. And so that's a very good sign that we have a good program. And like all these partners, we see the crucial role of water operators and the positive impact the peer-to-peer exchanges add on them. So we believe that utilities can become vibrant, innovative, transparent, and sustainable operators. And our experience shows that cost recovery can be realized, that technologies are available, that attractivity for young professionals is achievable, corruption can be contained. We also know that reform utilities can attract strong and long-lasting financial support, both by public and by private institutions. This is why we want to continue this program, and we have committed another 14 million euros for the EU-WOP program, and these 14 million euros will be contracted this year. But for achieving these various objectives, we need to have more feedbacks on what made the change happen. And this is why you're here today, you know it. And what are the conditions for successful operation. On our side, we want to mention three things. The link with investments, digitalization, and the human rights approach. So, on the link with investments, mobilization of finance is one of the biggest challenges to meet the SDG 6. In fact, as you know, about 114 billion per year are needed annually to ensure universal access to drinking water and adequate sanitation by 2030. And this only covers capital expenses only for basic services. And at the same time, we repeatedly hear from investors or climate funds that money is available, and that the problem is not money, but the quality and quantity of projects. And investment projects are defined mostly by the water operators. Hence, we believe that the link between our support and investments is extremely important to be made. In that respect, the EU is at the forefront of promoting innovating financing under the Global Gateway with the European Fund for Sustainable Development, and that will mobilize 135 billion worth of investments in a variety of global gateway sectors, and this includes water. For instance, we have a new program with a guarantee with AFD for fast cities guarantee to support that is going to be signed very soon to support investment for local authorities, notably in the water sector. We are working on the development of the Urban Water Catalyst Initiative with Netherlands and Germany. We are working also on Climate Investor 2 to try to mobilize private sector investments for the etc. And linking the WOPs to this investment agenda, we think that by linking the two agendas, we can create a pull factor for changes. So the investments can become a pull factor for changes to happen. Indeed, this investment cannot happen if we do not have the more efficient, well-organized, transparent water operators we talked before, and operators that can ensure cost recovery and social and environmental sustainability. And for that, the WOPs can play a critical role. So this is the first point, the link with investment. The second point is on digitalization. Digital is not a magic bullet, but it is a must. Digital solutions are developing more quickly in third countries and developing countries than in Europe, I believe, in many areas, notably digital finance, mobile banking, smart metering, etc. And this is extremely important to increase the transparency of activities, to better understand your customers, understand your market, etc. Also, we need digital for asset management and accounting tools to help understand the cost, pricing, and to set up correct tariffs with evidence-based discussion with local authorities. And this is something that's not happening in many, many areas. We need also transparency to better manage corruption, and with smart metering and online banking, we can also decrease non-revenue water, but also with the asset management, also it can play a critical role in there. So basically, these digital services are a critical tool, an enabling tool for developing the investments and for improving the capacities of these utilities, and we do believe that we need to have a reinforcement of our digital capacities in the context of this program. Finally, the third point is the human right. The human right for safe drinking water and sanitation is critical because the human right is based on fundamental principles that are participation and access to decision-making processes. The second principle is non-discrimination and equal access. The third principle, accountability and rule of law. And the third principle, transparency and access to information. When you are mainstreaming these principles in your program, you automatically have to improve the way you are managing these programs. And you are improving also the efficiency and the quality of the work that you are doing. And this, at the end, is increasing a lot the sustainability also of your programs. And so we believe that this is something that has to be looked at more carefully. And attached to these fundamental principles of the human right, you have the core elements that are specific to water and sanitation. And these core elements are affordability, acceptability, accessibility, availability, and quality of the service. And these core elements attached to the non-discrimination, participation process, etc., give you basically the line to take in the discussions with the different partners and with the local communities. And so it's really extremely helpful to look at we have EU guidelines on this human right, and it's extremely useful to look at that and see how they can be mainstream in the context also of the partnerships to increase the capacities of the partners in this. And we do believe also that the European partners can learn from this application of the human right for safe drinking water and sanitation that is sometimes also lacking in the European developing countries. So on this, I would like to thank you very much and wish you a very good discussion. So as indicated, I will stay a bit for questions. I'm really happy to answer questions. And we are really eager to hear from you what is needed to improve the work being done. And we do believe also that it's really important to liaise with other partners, NGOs, development banks, etc., to understand how all together we can do better, because it's not only the WOPs that count, but what we can gain out of these WOPs, how we can improve the services and the investments thanks to also to this partnership. Thank you very much.
No, thanks very much. That was extremely helpful. I think a lot of new information for people in the room about what the priorities are for the second phase, but very clear information. What I'd like to do is actually dedicate some time immediately to some question and answer on what you have said. I will give a little bit more of an overview of the process for developing phase 2 and also looking back on phase 1 in order to guide the group discussion. But I think it would be appropriate for us to talk right now with you directly, Arnaud, on some of what you have raised. So I'd like to open it up then now for some questions from the participants in the room and those online. Please do raise your hand virtually or in real life. I have Peter Dunny from the European Benchmarking.
Yeah, a question about the available funds for the next phase. You mentioned 14 million euros. Is it meant for an extension of the current WOPs or also for new WOPs?
Let's take a few questions here. Any others that would like to raise questions or make comments? Simon.
Yes, my comment is that the success of the first phase asks for more. It tastes for more. And the thing what we notice in many of our operational partnerships with the EU-WOP facility so far is that plans have been made to realize substantial improvements in the operations, for example, energy reduction, for example, NRW reduction, but it cannot go without making only plans. It has also to be supported by a kind of operational fund. So I would love to know whether there are opportunities to get access not to major investment funds, because that's a different story and different piece of cake, but an operational fund like the Catalyst Fund where you were talking about, that would open up opportunities for these small WOPs to also make the things realized that they have been scheduled in the first phase.
Great question and comment. Over to you, Claudio.
Yes, maybe I'm saying something which has already been said here. So we were discussing at the coffee break yesterday. So just to focus this idea, maybe it has been already said in some way, but I mean, there are funds from the official development aid for achieving the SDG number 6. So when we are talking about water operator, this is the money, the funds, the resources they spend into this. They are not in the accountability of the official development aid, ODA, they are not counted as ODA. So all agencies for development and cooperation, I'm thinking about SDC in Switzerland, I mean, they have a huge, I would say, amount of resources that they invest in the water sector, in many other sectors. So we should really tackle them. We should really have them on board, because they could allocate one part, because we are doing their job. So water operator, they are doing this is official development aid, and somehow it's not counted into. We have 160 billion per year of official development aid worldwide. I don't know exactly now how much is the number, but all the money we are spending in this with these actors, I'm thinking about the 220 municipalities in Switzerland, the 2 water purchases. This money is not counted as official development aid, but it is. So for this reason, we should have also somehow a meeting with the representative of the agencies, of the development agencies. I'm thinking we have a direct contact because we are sponsored. I mean, because they believe in it. I mean, the SDC in Switzerland, they believe a lot in this way to in this solidarity mechanism, and that's why they are financing they give us 500,000 for 5 years for the water partnership Lugano, Ethiopia, and Lausanne, Nouakchott, the one I was telling you yesterday, they got money in the last 10 years. So because for them it's seed money, it's like investment money, it's like fundraising where you put 1 million, you expect to have 10 million back. So we should tackle developing agencies at national level.
Thanks, Claudio, also for that, and that's something we can take up now and also perhaps later in our discussion. Arno, that's three points for you. Is that would you like to provide any feedback to those first, and then we'll take another round?
Okay, thank you very much. So the first question regarding is it for extension or new WOPs? So basically, it will depend a bit on the demand. So the extension of the current WOPs could be possible. So that's a first possibility. But we would like also to have some new WOPs, and notably, we would like to link it to the demands that we have from our EU delegations, according also to investments that are being made in the countries. So basically, we believe that if we can have a WOP that is more linked to current investment portfolios and to current engagement by donors, by the EU delegations, notably in the sector, we can have more impact. Because what we see is that, for instance, a lot of WOPs are facing problems related to regulations and laws. And so if these problems are not set, we can try as much as we want. We will have a lot of difficulties to manage the change that is needed, to achieve the change that is needed. So it needs to have in parallel some policy dialogues and some discussions on reforms. Also, these reforms can be triggered also by investments. So this is why the link with investments can be also quite interesting, because it can help in the policy dialogue, but also it can help in having a concrete, let's say, objectives to reach for an investment to come. And this also then can be supported by the investors or the development bank that is involved in the process, can support the little projects that you are also talking about that are identified upstream by the water operators. Then after, on all these little projects that are getting out of the water operators. So the Urban Water Catalyst initiative is really one of the initiatives that is being pushed forward to accompany what we call the turnaround of the water operators through these little investments that are needed. The difficulty is when we have investments that are small, that's like a few 100,000, like 400,000, 500,000, etc. And where we have a lot of difficulties to get these small investments, and sometimes it's easier to go directly to a big one. So the question is, how do we make the link between these small investments and the big investments that come later? And how we can accompany the turnaround of the WOPs. And this is why the Urban Water Catalyst initiative, we think it's a very interesting option that is being developed, but probably we need to do more. And this is why also we believe that by linking the process to ongoing programs in the countries, we will have more chance to can accompany the overall program and to do some other things that are needed. On the not ODA accounted support, I'm not 1% sure I fully understood the question. But indeed, I mean, a lot of people are bringing these solidarity mechanisms and are not accounted into ODA. And I do believe we need to work more also with all the different donors that are doing this, that are supporting these solidarity mechanisms. So we have the Inter-American Development Bank, the Asian Development Bank. They are doing a lot of water operators partnerships a bit everywhere. They are supporting them, and also they have the means to put some money also on the table for accompanying the changes. So I think we can increase the reach of the program by also having this broader picture of what also the others are doing in terms of solidarity, and by bringing in the different partners together. But that's, I think, also the objective of GWOPA as a whole. So I think the Secretariat is trying to do this job and doing quite well. And we would encourage the Secretariat to continue in this direction also.
Thanks very much. Do we have any other questions and comments coming in? We can take another round. Osa.
It's not maybe so much a question, but I was just picking up on what you were saying about how to maximize what's going on in some of the countries in terms of the selection of the partners for the next phase. And I just wanted to highlight from the UN side and from UN Habitat side, we're looking more explicitly, I would say, at how to make sure that the WOPs going on are tapped in and integrated within the UN Sustainable Development Cooperation frameworks in those countries, so that we, there can be instances, because many UN agencies, of course, are working on water and sanitation, and it needs to really be plugged in there in a more explicit, integrated way. So I just wanted to mention that, and we're working on this a lot. Also, there's opportunities in the technical missions we're doing now for this phase, where we're meeting with the resident coordinator's office and really trying to strengthen this aspect of the program. Thanks.
Thanks, also good point. And do we have any other questions, comments coming in from online? I see a hand, and I will figure out who it is. Could the technicians unmute? Thank you. Go ahead.
Hello.
Melody, go ahead.
Can you hear me? Because
yes.
Yesterday I had some connection problem. You can hear me now? Yes? You hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Melody.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. So yeah, you're talking about supporting the investment, but sometimes it's also difficult to define and maintain a viable economical model for the water and sanitation services. And maybe sometimes it's necessary to provide some help to support the operation of these services. And do you think this is an option to dedicate a specific amount to support the operation for WOPs, long-term WOPs?
Okay, any further questions? We have two questions, comments that have come in. We'll take a third one if there are any online. Okay, this is our last round to speak with Arnaud, and then we'll move on to the, so no more questions. Okay, Arnaud, over to you.
Okay, thank you very much. Just to react on what Asa was saying also on the UN resident coordinator, I think also UN Habitat itself has a lot of capacities to deal with local authorities, and this also can be tapped in probably even more. Because the local authorities play a critical role, notably in financing the development of the water infrastructures, and sometimes they have also you have a lot of issues between in the relationship between the local authorities and the water operators. Sometimes a lot of political problems that are also impacting on the cost recovery. And the question that Melody you are asking also regarding support to operation on the long term. Because if a local authority does not provide adequate support to water operators so that it can make its work properly, then it creates a lot of problems. If you don't have a proper asset management and accounting system that can allow you to understand what are your costs and how you are managing your infrastructure, then you have a lot of issues, and some local authorities do not allow the water operators to have an independent accounting entity, to be an independent accounting entity. So you have a lot of issues related in the relationship between the local authority and the water operators in a number of countries, and this has to be tackled in a way or another. And it comes back to the question on the long-term operation support and the OPEX. Of course, OPEX. So OPEX should not be a problem. So basically, what we are advocating for is that the treaties, the tariff, should cover the costs, and the pricing should be done also correctly, so that we can have a cost recovery system. And the cost recovery is a fundamental principle in the EU, also of the Water Framework Directive, and we should try to push in this direction as much as possible through the treaties, the transfers, the taxes, and the tariff. And we cannot have a long-term sustainability of the sector if we don't have that. And we know that it is possible and achievable because it has been done in many countries. And so there is no reason why it would not be possible. We know that it has been achieved in many countries. But for that, you need to have a strong partnership between the local authorities and the water operators, a clear relationship, and a transparency. You need to reduce corruption, etc., etc. And for all of this to happen, it takes time, and in the meantime, it's extremely difficult to support OPEX if we don't have this let's say, in place. And basically, we see some donors and development banks stopping support to some utilities because they cannot ensure this sustainability. And that's maybe that is a problem in some areas where they can't find any more some support to investments, and then after it impacts, of course, on their OPEX and everything, because they cannot show this sustainability, and this is critical. So and so we if there is so what can be done is to accompany the transition, so the turnaround, and this can be done most probably, but on the long term, there should not be a need for an OPEX support.
Arnaud, thank you very much for that. I think that we can move on now. Go ahead. Thank you. Go ahead, Francisca.
One question from the chat I'm reading out from Ora Vidal Carrasco from Engineers Without Borders. Is there a way to prioritize small operators?
Arnaud, please go ahead with that last question, and then we'll move on. Thank you.
So this, I think it depends a bit on the demand that we receive from the countries, but I do believe that if we can we do that in a number of water operators partnership. We have a link between several small operators, and we support several small operators. So that can be done. It's we don't have and in some countries it's small operators, in some other countries it's big operators. So we are not going to say we are going to prioritize big operators instead of small operators, because in some countries it's one big operator that is national. In some other countries, it's plenty of small operators. So there is not a one-fit-all approach. But I mean, we are really completely open to support either small operators or a bunch of small operators or one big operator. That's we have no religion there, basically.
Yeah, thanks for the clarification, Arno. And I think, yeah, I think the word is a little bit of consolidation, also concentration of effort, so that where there's change happening, it can make a bigger impact. Is something I picked up from your guidance. So if we could put the presentation on, tech team, and we'll just present a little bit about the phase 2 development process, and then a review of some of the framing aspects of the phase 1. We first briefly the agenda, which we're already well into. We're going to go through this presentation, and then the rest of the day will be feedback from you. Open discussion. We'll have some breakout group discussions, and then we'll have plenary discussions, and that will take us until the end of the day. We invite you to be very active online, use your cameras and ask questions. This is really for getting your feedback. So all of this you know already. We've been asked to lead the design of a new phase. We're midway through the first phase of this flagship program. Let's see where that feedback. It looks like Aura. Aura, could you turn off your mic, please? Thanks. That we are in the process of preparing through this consultative process through the course of the next few months. This is going to add 14 million euros of new activity to the existing agreement that we have with the European Commission. And this is going to be prepared this year, signed sometime in the middle of this year and beginning in 2025. The exact duration has not been specified, but it's likely over a somewhat longer period than the former phase. And we have a number of directives about the design and what this will look like, and Arno has just shared them with us in a very clear way. But some additional ones are the fact that we want to very much learn from what we've done. So we're integrating learnings from the first phase, and as Osa has mentioned, there are a number of sources for this. One is the early results-oriented monitoring review that was done at the beginning of 2022, which gave some very encouraging feedback on the design of the project and its outreach and engagement. It's quite informative also in some ways that things could be tightened up. We're embarking currently on a midterm review that's going to take the next couple of months to complete, but will feed into this process very actively, the recommendations of which will come out in March and be directed very much on how we improve for phase 2 design. We've conducted a knowledge management study. Many of you were involved in this. We're interviewed on how you're actually doing your WOPs, a little bit more the kind of mechanics behind the scenes that we can learn from also in better guiding WOP practice. And then there's a digitalization survey that is ongoing, or study that is ongoing, that is informing the digitalization aspects that are being requested to be prioritized by the EU. So in terms of thematic orientations, there's Arno has laid these out nicely. I think the digitalization being a clear one, financial linking, and human rights. I won't go into the details of these. These are simplified ways of presenting these thematic orientations, but I think Arno has explained them well. And there's obviously a linkage between these three components and how and the way that WOPs can support their development. And then responding to the question of Peter Daniel, so was about whether this will be for new or ongoing projects. What will happen to the projects that are en route now in phase 1? And as Arno has explained, this will include opportunities for both. So both new opportunities and the continuation and augmentation of those that are en route, and particularly those that are, of course, successful in different ways, that are, you know, bearing fruits, and that are in particular demanded at the country level. So this is the next point, is that there is really a very clear need for these WOPs, for improvements to the utilities, and WOPs in particular, to be a priority of the European delegations at the country level, within the country level frameworks. And so this is point that has been stressed for those of you who are involved in the EU-WOP programs, is to make sure that your projects are visible, being communicated to those who are on the ground. This is a real a significant, I think, change that we really need to, that bodes well for the WOP practice, because it really means that demand and drive, a commitment, engagement from the country level, from the governments, from the utilities themselves, is a really key element for even being selected, let alone the success of the projects. And then these ideas around trying to consolidate the impact and concentrate a little bit. So rather than have a smattering of small projects, not that to the exclusion of small utilities and so on, but there's an emphasis on trying to, consolidate, leverage, and take advantage of this sort of ripple effect of WOPs that we have created, this idea that one helps another, and that other is able to then go on and help others nearby. So these kinds of considerations we're trying to take up. The time frame is in brief is it's going on right now. So as the evaluation, as I said, is in the next couple of months. There's the digitalization kind of work that is emphasizing. It's not looking so much at what utilities need in terms of digitalization, but more in particular how WOPs can support digitalization work within utilities. How would we be able to identify a good, appropriate, viable digitalization kind of initiative within a utility? And that kind of a question, how would those services be developed or procured? Those kinds of questions. We've done a number of internal design workshops already, and we're carrying on. An upcoming one is on the, further streamlining our internal processes to just make admin functions and things as nice and smooth for us and for you as possible, and just and so on. The drafting is underway, and we're expecting to have a first draft in February for discussion with the EU. We're doing the regional consultations beginning now. This is the first one, and there will be other smaller consultations with the regions that will be benefiting from the project. And then continuing with the drafting and then the review and clearance process. This is the element that might take a little bit of time. The dates are not so confirmed, and the signing, which will happen sometime mid-year, to begin in 2025. I want to take you back as an overview. I think that the vast majority of those present have been involved, if not in implementing WOP projects under the EU-WOP program currently, at least applying or having some role in supporting. So I think it's relevant for us to reflect on what has worked from phase one, what we want to bring forward. But I'm going to do a quick sort of review of the framing elements for that phase. I won't go into successes and these kinds of things that we've learned in the meantime, but more about how did we set things up to be able to better get your inputs for the design of the second phase. So we also designed the first phase very much with these different sources of inputs, knowledge about what works in WOPs, experience from previous WOP programs like the EU-ACP program, and so on. And we were guided, of course, very much by the EU and UN Habitat framework. So there are certain things that constrain the way that we do things or give us opportunities to do certain things, and the rules, the financial rules and so on that we are working under. And then the consultation process was really important. So obviously you were very active, many of you, in helping us construct this this program with utilities themselves. There was a big workshop in Brussels that many of you were at in 2019, and then some from reviews, targeted reviews. Just the quick overview of the program as it was designed. It was a 4-year program with a, sorry for the colors, with a phase, I call it phase 1, with a first call process, which had 2 steps, and then a setup of the agreements, and then the 22 programs are running in parallel for 36 months period to be wrapped up within in 2024. This is now being pushed a little bit for this first phase, with amounts of 250 to 450,000 US dollars. That is the overview of the program. The objectives of the program were, first and foremost, to strengthen capacity and operational performance of the beneficiary operators for to achieve SDG 6, and to facilitate the flows of needed investments towards the beneficiary utilities. And an additional objective that was subsequently kind of sloughed off here and moved into the, somebody have their mic on maybe? It's a bit of feedback, thanks. Moved into the EU-WOP program that was that has been supported by the government of the Netherlands together with IHE. Is really this kind of work that we were doing yesterday, also of trying to strengthen more generally the capacity of those all over to do water operators partnerships more effectively. So we first we had an application process that had 2 phases that lasted a few months. The way that it worked, we put out a big call document with a very clear set of rules and eligibility criteria, which I'll go through briefly after this. And we put out the call, and we gave a couple months for the partners to find one another and to come together with initial proposals. We then shortlisted those and asked for the successful shortlisted projects to move forward with a revised proposal with a few more specificities, and then we had to cut some of those in the second phase. Yeah, so there were 2 windows in the last phase. There was a window for the emerging WOPs, new projects that had not existed before, and then another one that was open for those that were already ongoing, so for a continued phase, so that we're not pitting those 2 quite different sets of WOPs against one another. Those mature ones obviously having the advantage of being some advantages. So we had those different windows that were there. The eligibility criteria, you probably remember these slides from back when we were preparing you to apply, but they had to be for WOPs. They could be of different types, north-south, south-south, triangular. There were different relationships between the mentor and the mentee that were possible. And one of the things that came from the consultations we had before this first phase was the idea, for example, that we could have mentors supporting one another. So we could have a double mentorship, where one mentor would like sort of a north-south-south or a north-north-south or whatever these kinds of situations might look like, that would help build the capacity of newer mentors for doing more WOPs later. I'm just going to jump over a few things, but the themes, of course, are quite broad. Anything supporting sustainable development goals, not only SDG 6.1 and 2 about water and sanitation access, but also looking at the 6.3 and 4 around water use efficiency, wastewater. These things were also relevant, and water resources management, even as they applied to the utilities. The range of activities were typical WOP activities, but very much with a focus in the WOP lingo of doing with and not for. The partners that were eligible to apply, the lead partner had to be a utility. The mentor utility was the rule, and they needed to, of course, have the capacity to do so. The beneficiaries were also public water sanitation service providers from one of the eligible countries. There will be greater specificity this time about which countries are eligible, because this will respond to the demand that is expressed at country level. And there's a need for financial or in-kind commitment from those mentee utilities. So this has been an important. I'm just recalling these things that you may remember, because they were important in the design, in our attempts to select the best, most likely to succeed kind of projects. And I think it's relevant also for the design of phase 2. We also had this idea that we could be a supporting mentor. You could be an additional partner. So a supporting mentor or a co-implementing partner. This was a bit of a new thing, but we had quite a number of different kinds of organizations now get involved, like Hydro Aid being involved in, in supporting the training from the Italian side. These different kinds of opportunities. I'm thinking about others in the room who might be participating in that capacity. The kinds of expenditures, we did make it possible for utilities that were unable to provide any in-kind staff time commitment to participate, because we didn't want to exclude them. But of course, they were strongly encouraged to cover those, to contribute such in-kind support. And there was some support for small hardware, software. This doesn't respond to Siemens' discussion about sort of an operational fund, but we've noticed that it's important for these WOPs to have at least some funding available to facilitate the learning that goes on. So the selection criteria, I mean, there was basic stuff around the capacity of the lead institution, but the focus was really very much on the technical proposal. Of course, the financial proposal had to also make sense, but the technical proposal was where we put the bulk of the evaluation weight. And then this was some of the considerations in the technical proposal. This is just to remind you basically of how this all worked. This is not an exhaustive list. We have the call document, which gives you all of the clear guidance and at the time. But these things were important at the time. So, and we can think now about how these things might shift a little bit in the next phase. But ownership and demand being really critical. Different kinds of engagement, what kinds of themes were prioritary, these kinds of things. So I won't spend much time on that. For some, the response to the call was very strong. We were a bit overwhelmed by the number and the quality of responses that we got. We received 142, 65% of which we considered eligible, and over 50 of which we considered to be really quite good, and that we had to say no to by and large. So there are really a lot of diamonds in the rough still out there that could potentially be considered, if there's still the demand for that and at the country level. This is a quick map of the final selection and their regional breakdown of the mentors and mentees, with a strong focus on Africa, followed by Asia, MENA, and LAC. And for the distribution in terms of those ongoing versus new projects, window 1, window 2, by and large, they were window 1. They were new projects, but there were 5 that were continuation of ongoing ones. And the constellations of partners. So a good number of them were north-south, the only northern region that was eligible was Europe, so that means European led. And then there were triangular ones with the north, south, and then there were 7 that were actually south partnerships. I won't go into much detail about the budget and cost, but just to say that the leverage was very high. So we had, there was a range in the amount of the grants, and the leverage was, I think we said around 70%. I'm sorry, I don't have the total figure there, but somebody could do the math. But it was really good in terms of in-kind support and actual cash contributions, also from the range of partners. There were there was an emphasis on the links to investment. Yesterday, I say this for the benefit of Arnaud and others who weren't participating with us yesterday, that we had also a presentation on financial linkages on a paper that is coming out around, documenting more clearly how WOPs are linked with investment, both in the preparation, ongoing, and as follow-up. And there's quite a lot of that that's actually happening, but actually not so formally. So one of the, this is also something we're finding with the projects now, is that there's a link to investment, but that link is not always so clear and so systematic or formal, let's say. But it's something that we obviously will care about for this next phase, and even more than ever, as Arnaud has clarified to us. The improvement areas, I mean, this is based on typical thematic improvement areas in WOPs. Just to give a quick overview of the breakdown, one thing that jumps out at me is that, climate is and energy efficiency is rather low there. And also technological innovation. So we're looking at things like, where in effect, there's actually many of these projects have a digitalization component, but it wasn't a focus, let's say, in that former phase, whereas it will be much more so now. Again, the SDG 6 targets addressed, or at least that are trying to be addressed through these projects, are diverse. So usually most projects contributed to more than one of the SDG 6 targets. Of course, with water and sanitation access targets 6.1 and 6.2 being the most common. Now, just briefly, I'd like to remind you about the BWOP, the EU-NO program, which has been providing a lot of value to the EU-WOP program throughout its term. This is a partnership between GWOPA UN Habitat and IHE Delft that has involved a lot of other actors, a lot of other practitioners, particularly the Waterworks program and Dutch actors. And there is quite a lot of work around generating information and knowledge around WOPs, good WOP and good utility practice, sharing it, applying it, and then capturing also what's going on within these projects. Quite a lot has been done through this BWOP project that I think has added real value, and this has been recognized in the ROM review and also in Arnaud's recent comments to our recent EU-WOP program report, that this is something that's really adding value. Some examples of work that's been done. I mean, some of the contribution, many of the sessions at the Congress, the Global WOPs Congress, which is an opportunity for practitioners within these individual projects to come together and be exchanging both on utility issues, but also on how they're doing their partnerships, how these are working well. The communities of practice has been a great success, and I take the opportunity to name Seaman, who's here with us, who's played a really very big role in championing that over the years, and all the Waterworks folks who've been really also very keen, because we've been able to bring in the Waterworks program members as well, and that's really had a big effect in mobilizing a huge number of participants to this community. So the online community is now well over 1,000 participants, and there's very active work going on, sharing knowledge around these things. So also a really valuable contribution there. We're also putting together a special issue journal of the IWA WASH Dev journal. So we're editing that journal that should come out in the coming year, over the coming year, article by article. So those are being finalized, but that's providing a lot of new information and knowledge about WOPs. So just a brief summary of also how the EU-WOP program is adding value to this in a way that I think is very significant. That's all I wanted to present to you in terms of the overview of the looking phase 2, how it goes to we plan to develop it, and then the phase 1 review. What we're going to do next is have breakout groups. But before that, I would like to see if there are any specific questions about what I presented or comments from anyone online or clarifications, for example, from the Commission. There's a comment. Okay, Anton.
I was impressed by the number on the slide with the diamond, so the number of applications and also the quality. And also yesterday in the room there is a lot of, I think, demand for finance to have this type of WOPs. Did you discuss with Arno if there was a possibility to have more money so we can have more WOPs? And there is absorption capacity. So has that been a discussion, or is there room within the European Commission to have more money than the promised? I think it was 14 million now. Yeah.
Thanks. Question noted. I thought this morning that Arno had said 40 million, so I thought, wow, great, he's already heard us, but it was 14. So so he can maybe respond to that later, but he's hearing you now anyway. I'm going to take one online and then I'll go to you, Hanu.
Sorry, but has that been in discussion? Did you try to check what are the options? Or?
Just good. So this is being stated now. That I think the Commission is aware that we're keen on receiving and managing as much money as possible for WOPs. I think that, you know, so and I think Arno has been a strong advocate for this. He's taking note, I'm sure. But a discussion. I'm sorry.
Yeah, maybe I can.
Please.
I think it would be. I don't think we've had an explicit strategy on what to do with these diamonds. Let's say it like that. One would be to pitch it to the European Commission that this is like low-hanging fruit. We can just expand. Maybe there's other ways as well. And I made the same note, just reminded today. I think we should really think about that. What we're doing with these ready-to-go WOPs. Just to add to that.
Yeah, and without spending too much time responding to what you've said, but I also think it picks up on what Claudio was noting also this morning. I mean, there's a lot of you know, bilateral support that's out there as well. So one of the things we can think about is how can we weave these things together in a useful way. Milo, please ask. Go ahead.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. Milo from Acqua Pubblica Europea, a network of public water operators at European level. I'm sorry, I missed initial part of Arnaud's presentation due to some, let's say, miscommunication. So I apologize if I say something that I ask about something that Arnaud already addressed, or I'm saying something not completely correct. But it seems to me that one of the most significant change compared to phase 1 is this strong focus on the beneficiary-led approach of the phase 2. I mean, the fact that delegation in beneficiary countries will play a key role in determining the demand for WOP. This has been, by the way, a long-standing issue. I mean, also following some chat with Arnaud, this is something that was already there in the first ACP facility. I mean, the need to give increasing role to the EU delegation in the beneficiary country. So we absolutely understand this change in the approach by the European Commission. At the same time, it seems to me that this change is, is modifying the mechanics of the EU-WOP has been known so far, including of the first ICP facility. In this change, it seems to me that a key role will also need to be played by the regional platforms. So a first question maybe to the GWOPA Secretariat is, if, I mean, I imagine in the next steering committee, this will be made clear to regional platforms about the need that they need to be more active towards EU delegation. And I was also wondering, I'm also wondering whether as Secretariat, you are planning to give guidance to regional platforms about how to address EU delegation beneficiary countries, because this might not completely be clear to some regional platforms. And this is the first question. The second question, again, to the Secretariat of GWOPA is, well, thanks, Julie, for refreshing us the memory about the methodology, the criteria for selection in phase one. I would like to ask you whether have you already an idea of how could look like the new call for proposal under the new in phase two, considering the differences that have been mentioned, I imagine, by Arnaud, and particularly this beneficiary-led focus. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Milo. Great questions, and I've taken note, and we'll take one more, and then we'll try to respond. Hanu?
Thank you. Is phase two also a 3-year program? That's my first question. And second, is there any indication of about phase 3? If not, we should also take into account in designing phase 2 possibility or need to phase out the support. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Okay, so let me go try to respond in reverse order, and I'll know I don't want to be calling on you all the time, but if you would like to respond to any of the questions that were raised or comments made, that would be great. Also, feel free, but no pressure there also, because we know you have to slip out at some point. But would you like to go ahead now, Arno, or? Yeah, please start.
It's okay. Please go on and we'll repeat.
Okay. Let me provide a few replies to that. So the first one about the duration. So the exact duration is yet to be clarified, but there's already been discussion about it being longer. I mean, we all know that the longer the better in a certain sense. I mean, this is these are relationships also that are built. There's a lot, things take time, but also that it's not a quick do it and get out kind of approach. So yeah, this is something we're looking at, but I also think that the design of these projects should be thinking about not just how to close down, but how they might be sustained in another way. So looking at also diversifying potential sources for sustainability of these WOPs longer term. So this is also why it touches on our conversation yesterday about different sources and so on. So looking at the Milo's questions, how the new call for proposals will work, and this is very much, I don't want to be kind of exposing the messy part of my brain that's thinking about this a lot, but definitely the first step will be identifying this demand clearly from the country level. So once this demand is there will be a need to provide the opportunity for there to be partnerships proposed. So there are different ways that can be done. We can provide some sort of matchmaking opportunities. This can be done online. We can let everybody fend for themselves and just go out there and go crazy. But we'd like to try to do it in a way that's systematic, somehow systematic, helpful, fair, so that we generate the best possible proposals. But there's still yet to be kind of defined, let's say. So inputs also are welcome at this point. Milo, I think the other point or question that you had was more directed at Arno, so I'll leave that one. In terms of the regional platforms, go ahead, Osa. Yeah.
No, Milo, on the question on the regional platforms, this is one, just for I don't know if everybody knows how GWOPA is structured, and not to go into too much detail, but for quite a while, we've had regional platforms. Some of them are more mature, more active, and some not, and some are yet to be really established even. We're not really representative across all the world in terms of regional platforms. So it's something that also came up in our midterm review of GWOPA as a whole that has just been published. And we need to, Milo, short answer, we're looking at that as a secretariat in terms of sharpening up the TOR and really looking at how these regional platforms should operate, and also streamline it a little bit more. I mean, of course, there will be specific ways of working in regions, but they also need to have a common TOR. So I think the fact that you're raising that is also interesting. And I think maybe we take that point also for the steering committee meeting next week, that we may seek a few more inputs on that. I think that's a good time for us to hear a little bit more on that. Just maybe, I don't know if you have something to add, Julie, on that.
Indeed, we've been emphasizing this a lot with the EU-WOP project partners in the countries, that they need to be communicating and advocating on this level, and that we've been trying to make more connection with our UN country offices. So there are different ways that we're trying to communicate and connect at country level. But I think the platforms are as of yet one that stands to be.
The thing is that UN Habitat itself, you probably would guess, and know, we have regional offices as well. So we've just been doing briefings to the Habitat regional directors, and they also want a bit of a GWOPA SOP, let's say. And so that also needs to link a little bit in terms of how they facilitate with the regional platforms of GWOPA. So just to say that this is something very high on our agenda at the moment. Yeah, thanks.
Thanks. Arno, can we hand over to you to respond?
Okay, thank you. So the first question, yeah, I think it's already quite a lot of money to manage. So it's not that easy also to grow programs very quickly, and I would not advise for that because we have faced a lot of problems with this type of things. And then after, it's even worse when all of a sudden everything collapses, and so it's not very wise. So I think it's good that we progressively increase, and we'll see in the future if there are some further possibilities. And that it's also important to push for other actors to showcase that their interest, and to progressively also gather into the initiative. So our money is also there to try to attract others, and I think it's also working. And I think we need to consolidate the financing also with other stakeholders. And this is also, we may not be eternal. One day the Commission funding may stop, and if the Commission fund is too big also, it means that one day the program completely collapses if there are no alternatives that have been created. So I do believe that already we are providing quite a lot. It's getting bigger and bigger and better and better, but we need to be prudent also. I think it's important when the operators are working with some investors, and these investors can be interested in supporting the partnerships, like the Inter-American Development Bank, the Asian Development Bank. They are doing it quite a lot, but also EIB can be pushed into it, AFD can be pushed into it, KfW, they are also looking at it and trying to push. So basically, I think you can also work with these investors and try to get them on board. And I think that's quite important also to diversify the different types of support that you have. And also for the fact, Milo, that I think you perfectly understood. We want to have a much more demand-based action. Also because it's I think it's our interest. We're investing in the countries in water access, and we want to see these investments to be more sustainable on the long term. So it's our common interest to have that going on. And I think it's not only the delegation, it's also EIB, for instance, because EIB, they are very active in a number of countries, and they have an interest there that is quite high to have common approaches, and they are working. We have a number of countries where they have very strong water support to secondary cities. For instance, we have one program in Angola, one in Malawi, and we have several developing in Latin America. And so in these countries, there may be really a demand from the different water operators of this little of the towns or the national water operator. If it is a national operator, there may be a real demand from there that can be advocated also through EIB and EIB talking with the delegations.
One more question, Milo, over to you.
If I just can quickly react to what Arnaud was saying on the EIB. Indeed, I mean, we, for example, at the recent GWOPA Congress in Bonn this year, we brought the EIB in one of our sessions, indeed to try to streamline, let's say a bit, the relation between WOP and potential funding that comes after the EIB. And the EIB, our reading and interpretation is that the EIB it sees the interest and the added value of WOP. Then they have their procedural and regulatory setup that for sometimes might hamper a bit this link up with WOP and their financing part. So I mean, we will be happy to work with GWOPA and with you to try to streamline this relation with the EIB, that we think it's really key. It's key also in Europe, not only in outside the EU, in order to facilitate what the synergy could be between the WOP dimension and the financing part that the EIB can offer, also in overseas beyond Europe. So we are really happy to volunteer to try to facilitate this relation if needed. Thanks.
Thanks so much for that great suggestion. We're going to take one more question comment from Claudia, and then we'll go to the group work. Claudia.
Yeah, thank you, Claudia Wendland from Hamburg Wasser. From what I understood from what Julie and Arnaud said, for the next phase, that is very much focused on consolidating the existing WOPs, looking at finance. So I think that will promote very much the bigger WOPs, sort of, so the more advanced, so the more the bigger utilities also. So I think that's a very good thing, especially when we look at achieving SDG 6. But we should not forget also because we talked yesterday a lot, getting more involved, new utilities. When I look now also at the mentor side, we need also more utilities. When I look in Germany, is still not very mainstream to be engaged in WOPs, and there are still only a little number of the German WOPs are involved, and we need to enlarge that, and we need to make that more mainstream, that it's normal also for European WOPs, for European utilities, for German utilities to get engaged. So that is a normal thing also, because we need the political will. Yesterday we talked a lot, what are the barriers and so on. And to overcome it, we should not forget to look also to have maybe a window or whatever in the upcoming phase also for new setting up new WOPs, for new mentors coming on board. Maybe that can be like baby WOPs. I don't know how we can call that, but I think that's very important also to mainstream and to get these overall political and institutional support and acceptance in Europe as well. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. This is an important point. I think really an important one also for the sustainability of WOPs and of these projects. Also that it's not just strengthening those who are already, succeeding, and balancing that with, of course, the desire to really consolidate and get some strong successes out of this next phase. So thank you for everyone for your questions, comments, and clarifications. There's another Oh, Arnaud, please go ahead.
Yeah, no, just to react on this one, because I want to make sure to be clear that the EU delegations in our country programs we very often work on water access, not only with the EIB on big investments, but also with UNICEF or with other partners, any type of partners. We work in rural areas, in big cities, in secondary cities, everywhere. So our EU delegations, they will ask for WOPs not only for in the context of big investments through EIB, but also in the context of investments with UNICEF or with any other type of partners. And I don't expect that we will say we need to have only the big ones. On the contrary, this can push for having a call to cover some utilities that are usually not covered, because when we do a budget support, for instance, in a country A, Z in terms of access to water in secondary cities or rural areas, then we are targeting zones and areas where nobody is usually gathering support for this type of activities. So I do believe that through this demand base, we can, on the contrary, reach some areas and some types of utilities that with whom we are not working usually. So I think it's so of course what will happen is that the biggest will reach out to the delegations to ask, but on our side we will also reach out to the delegation and tell them, okay guys, you have a program on water. What do you think? We could develop some partnerships with the utility involved in this program, and if they are happy to do that, then it would really be able to, we would really be able to reach these smaller utilities or non-usually targeted utilities. Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot. That's an important clarification. I also heard from Claudia's question, and I know this is not necessarily something you need to respond to right now unless you want to, but I think there's also curiosity from the actors here. An objective that was sort of part of the former program was to ensure opportunities for more utilities in Europe or for wherever they are to get involved in WOPs, to start improving their capacities to actually engage in these partnerships and mentor. And so I think this is also something, if we set up this combination last time where we had a lead mentor and then there was maybe a secondary mentor as they were kind of getting up to speed in the mentorship process. So I guess there's also a question about, in the design of this, if we want to be making space for those with different kinds of abilities to come into this this program as potential mentors. So something to reflect on. Thanks. I will let us now. We're going to, if you could go to the next slide. Oh, that's me. Sorry. I'm controlling a few too many parts of this call. So we're going now to breakout groups. We have tables here. We have 3 tables in real life, and then I'm going to divide the people online into 2 groups. And the question that is being asked, is based on your knowledge of the EU-WOP program, because the vast majority of you have been involved in some way before in the phase 1, or in what I've just presented, your impressions of that, and based on the discussions we've had now, the clarifications we've had, about what are priorities for phase 2, what do you think should happen with different aspects of if you could, what I'd like you to do is have a table where you're putting things into categories of something that we should get rid of, something we should maintain, something we should improve on, or something we should completely add anew. So these are 4 different categories of things, and it's just a way of keeping the notes. What we're going to do is we'd like somebody to really be a good note taker in the group, more important than a rapporteur, because we will want to hear back from rapporteurs, but that'll be a summary, like a kind of highlights of things. We're not going to be exhaustive, but we'd like to capture your points that are in the group. So if every group could have a very thoughtful, dedicated note taker. So and this is the same for those online. And I'm asking if people online could actually take a screenshot of this this thing, because I'm not sure what will happen to it when I put you into groups, if you'll be able to keep it. But if somebody could then use it there, and then we'll come back. We have So we have a scheduled coffee break at 11. And what I'd like to suggest is that we just decide to give ourselves a break, but also you can work kind of through that. And we meet back here at 11:30. And then we can report back on the findings of these. We won't, again, we'll just pick up some highlights from that, but please be very verbose and creative in your thinking so that we can, and we'll try to capture your inputs there. Are there any questions on that before we disappear into our virtual rooms?
Capacity improvements as well. Oops. Sorry, I did.
Hello, hello.
Yeah, sorry. There was an echo for me. For the are we okay? For the PMP, so I do think it's important to monitor the partnership health as well as the capacity strengthening in addition to the performance metrics. But one specific improvement would be for simplifying.
We've lost a few on the way.
Oh, sorry.
Milo, do the people you see in the little pictures, are those the people that were in your group, or are they other people also?
Other people also. I think that
Kennedy, are you reunited with other online participants?
We merged back in the main room, let's say main online room. So I see also other participants now.
Okay, good. Yeah. Okay, good. So maybe we just lost a few people along the way. Okay. Okay, great. So thanks for that. I hope you're all refreshed and have expressed yourselves thoroughly in the breakout groups. I see lots of writing on the tables here, and I hope that you've also captured things in those groups online. As I've indicated, we'll be happy to get all of the details of those discussions from you. But right now, we will have representatives of each group do a quick presentation under 5 minutes, please, to give some highlights of the discussions that happened. So we have 3 groups here and 2 online, so we'll go back and forth. Let's start with one table here. Let's start with this table here, right to my right, with Claudio and company. Who is going to be presenting from your table?
Test. Yeah. Then next to the. All right. Yeah. Okay. So the 5 minutes. Elements to keep. I mean, I'm just going to highlight a few. There are many more that we have been exchanging, but I understood that this is going to be a quick exercise. Staff time cost recovery. As one element that it's emphasized. Yesterday we saw the vulnerability of that in-kind contribution, so that's one element. The new operators try to also make it as an eligibility criteria, bringing new operators to the. Is it working? Yeah. Okay. To the new call. As one element also that it's very strategic for WOPs in general.
Can you just repeat your last point, because I think there was a little break. Just the mic is not. Yeah, maybe just put it right up to your face.
Hello. Yeah. Okay.
And just go back 1 point, please.
Okay. So new operators keep the newcomers as mentors or co-mentor arrangement that we had in the first call. Also keep knowledge management support to practitioners. That has served to really create this shared identity within WOP practitioners and many opportunities for exchange, networking and learning that impact the projects, of course. I see here a lot of notes from Simon, but I think that's the summary of it, unless Simon wants to complement. The co-financing criteria has been something that has been added as well as something to keep, and I probably am just going to interpret that because I wasn't here, but the opportunity that the EU gives us with this seed funding, leverage that with co-funding opportunities from either our respective development agencies in our countries, other thematic opportunities for funding, whether it is climate resilience funds, whether it is knowledge support. We were talking here about the possibilities as well of identifying needs for capacity development in terms of trainings for specific staff in the WOPs that are fundable through alternative sources, as we see in the Netherlands and many other places, that there are also funds that we can tap into for the co-funding and for the leverage. There was a point on involving at the design stage, at the mobilization stage, our development agencies. And there was a suggestion for a meeting that could take place from Arno or the EU, GWOPA, call upon all development agencies in Europe and have a particular meeting to try to offer the opportunity that the EU is launching this program, how they can co-fund and make it a bigger program with bigger impact. So that's a very particular point that has been added. New WOP. Yeah, new WOP partners, phase 2, we mentioned that already. Longer duration, that's also been emphasized. In terms of improving, I see here, and in improving the partnership, improve the emphasis on the partnership element, both the mutuality, both partners benefit, and try to drop, these are connected, drop the mentor-mentee terminology. Sorry? Yeah, talk about partners, talk about mutual benefits, see how we can identify alternatives to the mentor-mentee, which really do not reflect the reality of both partners benefiting. We also saw yesterday how important this is also in the long term, strategically speaking. Improve anchoring the projects with the key local stakeholders. An emphasis also on involving relevant key stakeholders on the ground. And also to improve the transparency in the selection rejection process. There was some comments that after the selection was made, there was not a lot of clarity on why some project had been selected and why others were not. So more transparency there is welcome. And I see here dropped admin resources, but I wasn't here. Maybe someone on the table wants to explain. Drop admin pressure. Admin pressure. Who wants to elaborate a bit more? Simon.
There were a few of the EU-WOP project managers that said, please do not accelerate on admin pressure in the WOPs.
But is there any specific example that we can know? Okay, we'll just have to interpret that then. Yeah? On that. Okay, I think this captures a bit the discussion in this room, unless I've missed any important point. No? Okay. Yeah.
That's great. Thanks. So we're going to move online. Exactly. Really a lot of points. I will not comment on them because I have too much to say, but I think they're really useful, and it's nice for people to pick up on those things in the other group discussions as well. What I wanted to say was just that if a point is not understandable either in what's said or in what's written, then it just goes without, and it has no value, in terms of so if that is a point that would like to be communicated, please make sure that we hear it somehow. Yeah. Okay, so moving online, let's go to group 1, please.
Julie, was group 1 was, I'm not sure if it was our group or.
Let's consider it was your group, Emra.
Okay, so I'm happy to report on behalf of group. Well, I think one of the important elements were emphasized a lot on the communication side, to basically to have a clear communication, to make sure that we really disseminate this knowledge, these opportunities to broader stakeholders, to make aware of some of these, local government authorities and others to participate, to emphasize the mutual benefits that's coming from the partnership. So first line of the work is to really to have that communication going out, so then making them aware so that they can come forward and participate in the call and the partnership. And the importance of financial linkages were emphasized to improve. This is the funds coming for the partnership. They can be sort of like they can be extended for up to 5 years. It's better to have a longer duration, but it's also important that financial linkages helps to mobilize other resources for the WOP, for the infrastructure investment and other things. So there was suggestion on that. And matchmaking process, interesting sort of suggestion is to really engage with the associations, networks of cities, networks of utilities, and all those things to facilitate that matchmaking process, to make sure this is maybe dealt by them with their members. That could be also interesting role for the platforms to engage in early on in this matchmaking process. But of course, the information that we're sort of like, they say that it's important to share enough information with those networks, associations, those mechanisms in good time, so that they can engage with the matchmaking process as well. So in terms of the theme, so the digitization, climate change were emphasized to have a greater role, but also the human rights, especially the right to water and sanitation, where it was emphasized that sort of like the themes should be strengthened, should be improved in the new phase. I think staff time, yes, especially the staff time and the agreement with the utilities to avail their staff for a WOP is important. So I'm not quite sure how we will tackle this, but the suggestion was there's often not much flexibility with the staff to engage in the WOP. How does this new call make explicit with regard to the rearrangement of the staff time, or new staff requirement for the utilities to be able to implement successful WOP. So this is another element. I think especially in the partnership eligibility. So another sort of suggestion was to really to go beyond the local the utilities, but like also local governments. How do we engage them, and then also they are eligible to implement and engage in the WOP. I think this is more or less what I could capture. The knowledge piece, and that was also stressed, that we keep improving the knowledge management. Study exchange are essential. Sharing experience with other WOPs were also sort of like critical. One person said it's not just only the utility to utility, but also partnership to partnership is important to share experience with each other. Yeah, I think that's all I could report.
Emma, thanks.
If I miss anything, Melody, Anand, Georgia, please feel free to add.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks, Emma. That's what I forgot to ask. Please, if there are any clarifications from within the group, anything that people from group 1 or whatever you were called would like to add, please feel free. And any questions from others? Sorry, go ahead.
Yes, as the previous group, we actually talk about the importance to support the staff, the working time of the staff, technical staff.
Okay, I would like to ask a question on this, Melody, for clarification. You, just to be very clear, you're talking about supporting staff from that are working in from like mentor. Sorry, for lack of a better term. I'll always welcome for suggestions on how to replace that. From mentors staff, that their time that is dedicated to the WOP should be at least at least they have the option to be fully cost recovered. Is that the point?
Yeah, exactly. And actually, we also talk about the terms mentor and mentees, which could maybe be adapted to more reflect the importance of the benefit, mutual benefits.
Yeah, there's a lot could be said about that and discussed. It's a really interesting one, and you know, the EU language talks about beneficiary partners, lead and beneficiary partners, which is the language that we've been using in the EU-WOP. I'm not sure if it actually makes an improvement. I don't know, because both benefit. So these are discussions we can have at some point. Just also with Maria's group, before we move forward, just making sure that there were no specific points to add. We will have a plenary after this, but nobody wanted to clarify. And any question for either of the groups that are presented so far for clarification? Okay, we can do this after also. Okay, let's go back into real life, and we will go to the table where Franziska Volk is sitting and holding the microphone.
Okay, where can I put this that everyone sees, including the camera? Maybe here? Okay. We had a very productive and constructive table discussion. I think at the total there were 8 EU-WOPs clustered on that table. So I think you can see that's very concrete and constructive. Remove. We have nothing, starting with that. Keep the links to investments, but not necessarily for new WOPs, because it takes a long time to build up the linkages, build up the trust, make the connections, prepare the plans, etc. Just beware of that. Keep the mutual exchange, which I think adds to this mentor-mentee, lead beneficiary discussion, that the next program should also allow for this both-way exchange and learning, and not merely the transfer of knowledge. Keep also regional consultation, and if we know of a third phase already, we could include the budget to attend the, the next regional consultation in the next budget proposal. We have a long list on things to add and to improve. I'll continue with the improvements. First one, harmonize the reporting frequencies, because in the AOCs it is stipulated that project year is the reference, and from a kind of UN Habitat requirements is the calendar year, so that adds a bit on the administrative burden for the projects. Also very concrete suggestions on the functionality of the PMP. There have been a few bugs, there has been downtime, and the Word report that is produced automatically for the narrative report is sometimes a bit hard to read, and it's very long, which is a challenge for the projects, because they not only want to share the project with GWOPA, but also with their steering group, for example, or the management board, etc. What could be improved as well is the communication of the call for EUI once it's launched, and especially how to reach the utilities around the globe. And a concrete suggestion on this could be through national associations, who then spread it further with their members. And I think linked to that is here that improve on the time for application, because we have to take into account that it takes time to reach all of those who would want to submit a proposal, and also takes time for them. They wouldn't start writing right away. They need to check with their managing director, with their board, etc. And only if they get the go-ahead, they can start writing, let alone kind of the stakeholder coordination, accounting for holiday season. So I think these are all concrete suggestions that we should have in mind when kind of launching the kind of call for application, but also thinking about what can we communicate before the official launch even. Other improvements could be, or more like raising awareness on that, is to avoid time gaps, especially for existing WOPs, when their first phase 1 is ending, so that second phase should kind of best case scenario come right after that. Improvements could also be made on the proposal template, especially on the log frame, because in phase 1 that led to some confusion, as it needed to be adjusted to fill the to fit the PMP structure, to just be mindful of coherence and clear communication to reduce the administrative burden and process time requirements. Improvement could also be on engagement of EU-WOP members as COP moderators in the global WOPs community. So we have one here even on ad, kind of make it maybe mandatory for them to engage or contribute their best practices, their knowledge, their learning on the global WOPs community. And improvements could also be made in planning ahead as program management, in a way of being mindful that any new request or change of plans or new plans are always difficult or time consuming for the project teams. So that the better it's communicated, the clearer that is, that the easier is also for the partners, and the less kind of also on this administrative side. Adding, so thanks again for the team for these constructive improvement suggestions. Ideas to add a benchmarking component to each WOP, which could be linked to the investment discussion, the monitoring the impact, and could also provide input for the PMP. Add more money. I think that was an important discussion, because there was a sentiment that last time already 50 good projects were rejected, and there's not so much more money that we feel like we can really kind of drum the drums to raise more interest, because it is felt that there might be kind of frustrations or kind of too many rejections if we mobilize even more. It was suggested to add a budget line for contingencies, for example, 10% of the budget, to make it easier for projects to be flexible and adaptive, and to account for administrative support that is required. Add a clear communication on how much is available for new WOPs. I think that links to kind of how much can we put efforts into raising new interest and supporting newcomers to join, because that's a risk of disappointments. What also could be added is the support on the link with investors, for example, the Urban Water Catalyst funds, the banks. If project partners are not familiar in this sphere with those stakeholders, kind of a dedicated support could be added on this. One idea was to think about if and how to link to the Blue Deal of the EU. Plus another, maybe I should have put that in a budget category, adding budget for operational or increasing or allowing more flexibility on budget for operational investments, equipment, etc. And also adding enabling support in one way or the other for, we picked up the baby WOPs, but those who maybe engage in a WOP first time in, for example, matchmaking, how to get the partnership started, etc. We have also 2 questions maybe for the plenary later. How long will phase 2 be, to also get a sense of budget per time, and the geographic distribution of funds. If that's not clear yet, then it would be appreciated if it's communicated ahead of the call. Yeah, good group work. Thanks.
Thanks so much. Really, really, really useful. Just to respond to the questions. So the phase 2, I mean, there's still some sort of total clarity around that, but I think we're talking more like 5 years. So it's a little bit longer, which is good, but we don't have certainty around that. Like, there are constraints from the EU side and so on. The geographical distribution, so we know that there will be a breakdown of that, and the breakdown is more or less the way it was broken down naturally last time, with an emphasis on Africa, followed by Asia, and followed and much smaller for LAC. The countries will also be different in the sense that the neighborhood programs will not be included this time. So it means like those many in North Africa and MENA region may not be included in this. So this is something we have to think about, where WOPs that are in those regions might be continued through different funding. Just for information, Arnaud has also been quite a big advocate within the EU, within different parts of the EU, for them to take up WOPs. So other budgets that he doesn't have control, like the neighborhood program and things like this, can they think about doing WOPs? So this is something that we can also try to pick up on as GWOPA. So that's just to respond to those, and a lot of good points. One thing I would just like other groups to comment on potentially is the this question about who we're engaging with. The former group, talked about who we should reach out to, but this was our big success in phase 1, was that we got a fantastic response. The demand is out there. So do we want to be increasing that? And so who should we really be targeting with greater outreach? Some questions there for clarification before we move forward. I saw some Dutch hands go up. Did you want to ask something?
Yeah, there are 2, multiple Dutch hands to see. I just wanted to clarify on the time period for phase 2, because of course the longer the better, but if the budget is 14 million, then that would mean that the annual budget is less compared to phase 1 actually. So I was wondering if you can respond to that, because then preferably if the budget is the same, then 3 years would be better.
Well, yeah, so no, I can't respond. I don't think Arnaud's online either. So but it's a question that's a question that I think we need to be answering together, like in a way about probably the annual, in the initial calculations, the annual budget is probably not going to go up very much.
I would add to that. I hope Arnaud is not listening. that strategically it might well be more interesting to take phase 2 for 3 years, so that you can allow more EU partners for more WOPs, and that you have the opportunity after 3 years to say to Mr. Arnaud, look, 2030 is coming up. We have to complete our efforts to 2030 with a phase 3 for another 3 years. That opens up the opportunity for you and for us all to continue our projects till the deadline of the Sustainable Development Goals and ask for the third phase with another 10, 15 million.
Yeah, I wanted to come back also to the point of bringing new actors, which seems to be crucial for the work practice and for impact in general. And the fact that I think in many countries there are not so many operators, as we call mentors, that are willing to take the burden of the administrative coordination of the whole project. In the past call, I recall we had a limitation of the number of proposals that one operator could submit. But if we do that, just a point of reflection, we might be penalizing those ones that want to take up that kind of role. I'm just raising this point for us to reflect on how to keep a good balance between supporting those ones that want to take up a role. I'm just imagining EMASESA taking the coordinating role with other Spanish utilities that are not yet there in the WOP movement, but want to try only with the technical support, but not with the administrative burden. If EMASESA in this case was to, engage many newcomers in projects, but they are penalized in the sense that they cannot submit more than X number of proposals, then we are not really promoting, like that. This is a good balance to keep, and I don't know how to do that.
Yeah, I get the point. It's an important thing. Sorry, it's my mistake for having gotten us off track. We should continue reporting on these discussions. Are really interesting. So let's keep going, and then we'll open up again. Let's go back online then to the second group. Who will be presenting there?
I will. Sorry. Can you hear me now?
Good, Kennedy.
Hello. Oh, thanks, Julian, and good report for room 2. It's a good thing to go last. We don't have to repeat everything that's been said before across the 4 previous groups. It's also good to see that some of the issues highlighted are cutting across the quadrants. Also good to know that we didn't have anything to drop. We see there's been a good program being implemented. So under KEEP, under partner eligibility, there's a suggestion to include UK utilities in phase 2. Probably Julie can clarify on that. If it's possible to include more utilities from the UK participate. Under add, so again on partner eligibility, there's a suggestion to include the Balkan regions with the fact that they can make operations more efficient and cheaper, the WOPs operations. And they can also be a value addition to the countries who are planning to apply to the EU. So it's good to consider the Balkan states as part of the partners can actually apply for phase 2 proposals. And they improve the matchmaking process. Those are an issue to more or less have work partners who more or less geographically close to each other, especially to facilitate these knowledge exchanges and visits. There's a concern that travel is really takes a big chunk of the budget. On the financial linkages, this is more or less a question to you, Julie, and probably to EU, on how well to be undertaken. There was an example from EIB that they don't normally support WOPs directly. They have a legal challenge. How can they finance WOPs if the internal mechanism don't allow for them to directly support WOPs? I think for the improvement of the PAP is something that seems to be coming across all the different groups. the need to simplify it in terms of the monitoring and reporting. And a good suggestion was to have it more simple for the partnership health and capacity outcomes. I think the issue about the duration, I know Simon has said reduce to 3 years, but the group suggested to actually do it 5 years, so a longer duration compared to a shorter one, 5 years duration. Another improvement was to make the WOPs approach more like a training tool to ensure it's more permanent and long-lasting. And the last option for improvement was to shorten the admin procedures within the Secretariat. So they're concerned that the agreements took long to complete, the agreements of cooperation, and also the financing and the release of installments, which took some time to more or less be dispersed, which more or less affected the delivery of the program. So that's it. Didn't have anything to drop, but unless Rita, Milo, Frederique, if you have anything to add, Delphine, please go ahead. If I miss out on anything.
I mean, this was complete.
Yeah, same here. Thank you.
Back to you, Julie.
Thanks, Kennedy. That was super clear and succinct, and you got the approval of your roommates. Any questions from anyone out there? Just responding to the geography, indeed, we need to clarify that ASAP so we can communicate it for sure about what countries, parts of Europe, parts of the world will be eligible. I can't respond to all of that right now. Like the question of duration, I'm not trying to be secretive about it. I just don't fully have the details. So, but we will try to get information back to you on this. Was there another question that came up that I'm not answering, Kennedy? No.
The financial linkages.
Yeah, the financial linkages. Oh yes, about that. Let's get into that in the plenary discussion. But I think that that's an important one. And I think the point is, so let us try to address that in the financial linkages, because I don't think we're necessarily talking about these things being formally funded by necessarily. Eventually, we know that's a goal for some, for WOPs to be more formally funded by financial institutions, but at least having some more clear, formalized or well thought through structured linkages where appropriate, where we know money will be coming in, has come in, these kinds of things. So let us talk about that more concretely in the discussion. And then now we'll wrap up that and we'll go to the final table in real time here. And who will be presenting at that table? Okay, Savannah.
Okay. We had a very small group, nevertheless, quite a few useful comments here. First of all, with Keep.
Shabana, I think that the camera is actually up this way. So
All
if you
right.
can turn it that way, then it'll allow them to see the screen. Yeah, thanks.
Hope this okay. 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 So first was the Keep section. For our group, the PMP tool was really helpful, and I think we should definitely continue using it. But there's a lot of improvements needed. I think we have already discussed quite a bit on the improvements. One thing was to make the PMP tool more assertive in terms of having it more public, owned by all the organizations that are doing WOPs, rather than just keeping it to the EU-WOPS program or GWOPA facilitated WOPs program. I think this was also discussed before. It is an open platform, but it has to be more prominent with other partners who are working with WOPs. And it makes sense that instead of having several reporting tools, say, for example, one WOP lead partner is working with several different donors, this particular utility should work with different project submission formats. And that might be quite confusing administratively, but if we're advocating more for the use of PMP tool with all the other donors, then I think it's definitely a more impactful way forward. And secondly, moving on to improve. Everyone really likes using the workplace /COP/global WOPs community. But there is a need to have much more blended engagement in the workplace, not only having more online interactive elements, but rather reaching out for constructive and managed face-to-face discussions during congresses. I think there were some COP meetings in some conferences, but we can have it more structured, and an important key element of all the conferences where WOPs are showcased. And it's also good here to look at the Dutch model for other European countries, because the Dutch have more experience. So we can think of more blended events, workplace events or COP events at the IFAD Congress or WOPs Congress, for example. And then the next was having more South-South and triangular partnerships. I think this was also discussed a lot in the yesterday and today. That helps diversify the portfolio of WOPs. And next was shared management of COP. So bringing in more organizations to moderate and own the COP as a whole consortium would make it more impactful. And also bring in new partners who haven't been using the COP before. And then the other point was also sort of linked to management, which is having a distinct platform for WOP managers, because there are certain utilities who have much more experience in WOPs, and they've created templates for several monitoring processes. But whereas a new comer in the WOP is just reinventing the whole thing again, which is time spent on things that are already existing. So if there's a more hardcore knowledge exchange, knowledge platform for WOP managers, it could be even on workplace. And the next point was optimizing the EU WOPs for making it more impactful. So how can we translate the EU WOPs to be more impactful? There are certain WOPs that are investing monetarily also quite low, but the impact is really high. So if there's a better exchange on that, we can look at how WOPs can be optimized to have the best practices in showcased in a proper way, not just in terms of knowledge or technical advancements, but rather on also how to manage WOPs. And then the last point was to diversify WOPs, so that we have a portfolio of WOPs which are not just similar, but you have these baby WOPs with small investments, but you also have massive WOPs with triangular partnerships or more utilities and partners taking place to scale up the existing WOP, so to have it on a very large scale. And then next we move on to add. There was the first point was obviously have more budget and funds, and the other one was to guide, like to create some sort of guidance or some process for working with other financiers. So it was explained in several presentations that the WOPs have to be linked to investments, but a lot of utilities and partners don't really know how to do that. So a practical guide on how to work with other investments, development banks, UN agencies would be more useful. I mean, this doesn't have to be a guided paper, but rather an event bringing all the partners together with other investments. So this would be really useful to scale up the WOPs and bring in more funds. The last point was third-party management of WOPs. So a lot of partners are having issues with administrative overload, or there are things that they are not able to do as a public utility company. And in this case, a third-party manager would be very useful, keeping in mind that this third-party manager has a very restricted budget, let's say 5 to 10% of the WOPs, but is able to bring all the partners together and tackle a lot of administrative issues which are overburdening the partners. And these third-party managers could be other GWOPA partners who have WOP experience. They could be WOP platform coordinators or regional associations that have been working with WOPs. They could be NGOs, or they could just be a private consultant who has enough expertise in WOPs. Yeah, and for the remove part, we did not have anything, so it looks like everything's good there. Thank you.
That was great. Thanks, Giovanna. Really useful. Thanks so everybody for your really good inputs. Again, we'll be collecting, these. We'll be collecting the ones online in whatever form you've captured them, and please also feel free. I mean, not forever, but maybe until like the middle of next week latest. Feel free to send a little email that clarifies a point that was made that was maybe not just like fully clear in its the way it was kind of presented, or at least that would benefit from some elaboration. So thanks a lot. Shabana, can I ask you to move that panel just so that we can see everybody a little better? And if we could now move on to the plenary discussion. So, I mean, this can be a continuation of what was just raised here. I heard a lot of things, that were recurring. I mean, I think everyone did. I won't raise them all now, but just as it relates to the next question. Oh, this is me. Sorry, I can do that. Okay. The next sort of more general question that we can be answering as a group. Okay, yeah, next one, sorry. This one, yeah, is basically how can the program be involving or leveraging actors and resources for the greatest impact? So it kind of builds on what has been said before, and just naming a few that I heard coming up in the working groups. This question about financial institutions. So, there's some call to get them more actively, explicitly on board and involved and so on, and seeing how we can do that up front, getting their ideas, maybe even into the design of things. But how do we formalize this link also? How does it show up? How do we demonstrate that there's actually a connection to investments? How do we actually encourage and enable? And this actually goes for phase 1 too. How are we actually helping the projects make those links and demonstrate those links where they exist or where they might exist? So some questions for you to reflect on. And then with donors, if there are maybe other donors that could contribute to this program. I mean, the EU, I think it's great to be asking for more money from the EU, and I think that's something that they will hopefully continue to consider. But there are other sources both that can feed into this program in addition to outside, so we can think about that also. Smaller utilities, how we can think about involving them, and is that a priority? I mean, if they're some of the ones that are new to WOPs are getting involved, is there a space for them to connect to this program in a useful way, and something that's actually compatible with the objectives that Arno laid out, which are really about making a real impact and connecting? How do we use them in a useful way that also grows the WOP community and skill set within Europe and elsewhere? And then this question about additional partners or facilitators or some sort of third party and funding flows. This stuff gets a little complicated, but ideas are really welcome because there's a lot of rules around that. We can't have one party that's then sending the money elsewhere to. So there are a lot of things that constrain the options that we have there. But your thinking on that is valuable. So those are my just kind of kickoff kind of questions. And let's just open up the floor for inputs, ideas, questions, and so forth. Looking for hands. I see a hand. Friedrich.
Yeah, thanks. I wasn't sure that you can see the virtual hands as well. Yeah, I just want to quickly react to this point because we also experienced in the German WOP platform this need for what now was labeled the external person, or somebody who takes away a little bit the administrative burden from the technical staff. And our solution in this case was that the mentor utility has budget available to, for example, employ a person. Often it's not a full-time. If they don't have somebody inside the utility that can take on that role, and that would at least get away the problem that with your funding mechanism you may not fund somebody from outside the utility. So that's how the solution that we found to give our utilities the opportunity to shift a part of that burden to either a person who is available at the utility or a person that is especially contracted into the utility, being then a member of the utility. I don't know if this was clear.
Yeah, clear and helpful. Thanks a lot. Yes. Other hands online? Oh, in person. Hannu, please go ahead.
Thank you. I'm an example of a third-party manager. And I would say that I could not call myself a manager because I'm not inside the organization. I have no authority to give commands to anyone. So that in order to make this arrangement work, there should be a manager or director or co-manager in the utility itself. And I would rather call myself a project coordinator. Thank you.
Thanks for that input. And there are other coordinators also within the EU-WOP program. Quite a number of utilities are using coordinators as an organization or as a consultant. And this is an approach that is working. Doesn't relegate the ownership from the utility still needs to really own it, but they have somebody doing some of that administrative work. Anton, I saw. Sorry, and then over to you, Federico. Oh.
Yes, in the same sense, I don't know if you can consider the possibility maintaining the centrality of the water utilities as mentors and mentees, or in any case, the centrality of the relationship between the water operators. Consider the possibility that the mentor is not the head of the administrative responsible for the. So perhaps additional partner can help in this sense and can assume the role of coordination of the project in terms of. I don't know. This can be a possibility.
Thanks, Anton.
I think one of the maybe if you talk about leverage, I think in the program now the biggest leverage is on the resources made available by the mentor utility. Correct, eh? So maybe, and I think hearing yesterday's remarks from all the participants here, there's an issue there. It's just to apply for this program, there's an issue on your own resources and your own resource mobilization with your own utility you work from. So maybe we should think also of mechanisms, ways how we can kind of really ensure that his own resources from the mentor utilities are available. And I think also what I also took a bit from the presentation of Arnaud, that he's not really fully aware of this problem. So he's kind of already, his starting position is that there is resources from utilities available, own resources, and then he co-financed that. So maybe we should also have a bit of a exploration with him, how the program and his program he's going to finance, how it can support our own utilities, the mentor utilities, to mobilize their own financing. But
Thank you. Thank you. Other points? Someone's online. Doesn't make it easy for you to know who that person is. The person with their hand up. Who would that be?
Hi, it could be me. I'm Guillaume from AFD, French Development Agency. Yes, I wanted to make a point on the link with investments. It's been mentioned a lot of times. For us, development agencies, it's it's a very interesting element of that program, and that's the reason why we've been engaging with it from time to time. I was myself in 2019 in Brussels, for example. So we'd be interested to see how this is being considered, if that's part of the selection criteria, if we're talking about continuity with existing investment programs, which often look at sustainability, sometimes tariff restructuring and all of that, or if it's an objective down the line. I heard also that there was a suggestion to have a specific discussion with development banks at some stage, which can be interesting, but I think it shouldn't be only asking if development banks can contribute to the program, but actually being very explicit on what are the propositions and how the WOP program can be in a form of continuity with existing projects. I'm thinking maybe during the proposal conception phase that there can be form of engagement with local representations of development agencies to see where we are with our programs and how a potential WOP can contribute to what's already existing or not, or if there could be at the end of the line, if the utility is strengthened financially, for instance, if that can be a case to propose a new investment loan. Yeah, so I guess there's interest to see what the program can bring, because it's definitely very complementary to what we can do.
Thanks, Guillaume. Great that you've joined us, and we'd be really happy to follow up with more questions for you to get your ideas. There was a presentation yesterday also that was really highlighting the complementarity, like the mutual benefit, let's say, between WOPs and the financial investments, and trying to make the best use of this without them becoming too codependent in a way.
Yes.
I think is the idea. So good. Thanks
Okay.
a lot.
Sorry, I wasn't here yesterday.
Who else would like to comment, raise a question, make a suggestion? Sure. Sure. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thanks.
I would like to ask the representative of AFZ if he can come with suggestions how, from his investors' perspective or investors' position, how he thinks WOPs can be linked to, in your case, the AFD investment programs. So what is kind of the way to go there? Because we have some, well, in my work, we had a lot of difficulties in achieving these linkages between the WOP programs and the WOP and the investment programs. So maybe you can give us some advice and suggestions how to be effective in that.
Thank you. I think that's a discussion to have, really, and I haven't been directly involved in the WOP phase 1, so I couldn't really elaborate on how to make improvements. And you may know better. I think we've met on an occasion or two in the past, actually, to discuss this. So it's been case by case support to WOPs for us. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. Well, it can happen. So I think it's really a discussion to have on how to work out this relationship in the phase 2. But since also again, apologies I couldn't join yesterday, but it's hard to elaborate just right here, right now.
Guillaume,
yeah, the principle is
Anton, we
good.
all know he's very good at putting people on the spot. So. Okay, thanks a lot for responding. For sure, we'll follow up with you on that. Is it Claudio, please?
Yes, sorry for coming back to my point of involving developing agencies. But so we are many representative of many countries here and online also. So, and to help you, Asa, to help Arno to do this job, we can do an exercise now. It takes 10 seconds. How many of us have a direct contact to a developing agency? Like me and Lucas, we can call Daniel and say, "Hi, Daniel, when do you have a time for a beer?" And we will tell you a story, and we can really have something like this. So I'm exaggerating a bit. I'm exaggerating, I know. But how many are we here that we can do this? Is it only 2 or 3, or is it 10, 15? Because then, we could make it easy. Your job. I mean, if you are going to send an email to the Swiss Agency for Development and Cooperation, info@sdc.ch, sorry, it's going to draw to navigate some. I mean, you will never get an answer, maybe. But if we pre-digest, I mean, those who have, because I know that, I mean, Federico, I'm sure you have some contact. Well, you to the right person. I'm not talking about the director of the agency, because they have, but if you go to the water person, who, you know, he's managing that portfolio. I mean, I don't know, just raise your hands. How many have these contacts? It's only us, or?
I'm not sure.
See how many. Okay, nice. Now it's one hand because it's Spain. So, but how many countries? One. I would say. Oh, in Spain there are many contacts. Yeah, that's good. So double fire is better than single fire. So of course. But how many countries are we? So Spain, Switzerland, France, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Forse online c'è ancora qualcuno. So see, we have already not half, but 1/3 of the countries maybe. And I would pledge or advocate. I mean, you could use us as ambassadors for this. So before connecting to the agencies, just tell us. So we will tell Daniel or Simon, or we have also 2 or 3 entry ports at SDC, that we tell them. Actually, when we go back home, me and Lucas, we will report to our to the WOPs, of course, but we will also report to the developing agency.
This is really great and really important. And I wanted us to also think, I mean, there are different ways of channeling this energy and enthusiasm and capacity. And one is, of course, towards the EU-WOP program, because it's a flagship, regional program, so on. But it's not the only place where that can go either. That there are also other ways that we can, connecting more to the discussion we had yesterday, ways that we can potentially utilize that willingness and interest in WOPs elsewhere. So there's, please, Osa.
The points I wanted to make is that the EU-WOPs program that we're focusing here is, without a doubt, the flagship program of GWOPA Alliance. But GWOPA Alliance is actually more than EU-WOPs program. So, and the sky is the limit. I mean, we're looking at creating bilateral other cooperation agreements with others. Then, of course, it's up to the GWOPA Secretariat to make sure that these piggyback and the synergies, etc., with what we're doing in the EU-WOPs program. Having said that, of course, we are also very open, and that was the question here, how we can leverage within the EU-WOPs program. But my message, and I think what Julie is saying, let's not be limited by that either. The other thing thank you. This is very clear, like the hands up, the Swiss, for example. And so my immediate follow-up on that would be, from GWOPA's side, we should integrate that within UN Habitat's relationship with the Swiss, right? So in many cases, there's already MOUs, contribution agreements, etc., flowing with your countries and UN Habitat, and it's a matter of putting in the water and sanitation and the WOPs into that discussion with the right contacts over the right beer that we haven't figured out the path. And if you can help us with that, we're ready. We're ready tomorrow. Tonight even. So please, let's work on that. Yeah.
Thanks, Claudia.
Yeah, I have another point, but maybe can I just add to that? So we are, Claudio, we are, for example, in contact with the KfW, which is a German bank for development, and they want us in South Africa to advise the utility. And so we are saying, yeah, we are doing that. We get a little contract, and then I'm arguing, but it would be nice to have a WOP construct. And then they are arguing, no, it's not possible. It's not fitting to our funding procedures, and so on. And so I'm trying to argue and trying to continue to argue with them. So maybe in case of KfW, if the Asian Development Bank is already using this tool to bring maybe also banks together to share their ideas, how they implement that in their funding program. So that could be maybe an idea for you to follow up on, to bring just banks together, because they are saying, to me, they are saying it's just not fitting, and they have no ideas and no means to include WOPs in their programs. Because if we can include WOPs, for example, in financing programs, that would really leverage, right? Then we would not have just single programs. And yeah. So, but I also have another point. Yeah. And about my issue that I had already to look at also the mentor side and to bring more mentor utilities on board, like in Germany. It could be an idea to include this concept of more co-mentors. Maybe that several mentors are running one WOP. And that works quite well, for example, in our WOPs, where we have co-mentors and we dedicate one work package for them, and they are really dealing with this one work package on their own. And so that works perfectly well. They don't deal so much with the administration. And I think in the first phase, you had at the end a call for still mentors needed, or for some issues or for some countries. And I think that could be a good idea this time to place somewhere a call. We are still looking for utilities for this topic or for this country who could be co-mentors, maybe to make that public and transparent. And so that could be an idea to push and to bring up more new, smaller utilities on board who want to enter the WOPs.
Thank you for that very concrete idea. Guillaume.
Yes, hi, sorry, I wanted to react again on the investment linking. I think it's it's not easy. We've been trying to do that for a number of years. People before me have done so too, have tried. We don't have the same time frames. We sometimes don't speak the same language. We may not have the same partners within the partner institutions. We'll talk to the people who are dealing with investments. You would talk to the people who are dealing with operations, and sometimes we don't even know that we're working with the same partners. So it's a lot of work really to find each other in the field and to understand each other. I just wanted to say, if you're looking for someone to talk to before ringing our Director General, the first thing to do would be to find our field agency, our field office in the country where you work, and propose whenever you have a mission. If you think there's an interest to do that, just knock at the door of our field office in the country where you're doing a program, and present to exchange and to see if there is interest. Maybe sometimes there is, maybe sometimes there isn't. And now with video conference, we can also be online because we always work in AFD. At least I can only talk for AFD with field office and head office together on each program. So we can also be in the discussion from the field office, and we also talk very often to the EU delegations. We are in close relationships because we have delegations of EU funds very, very often. So EU delegations can also help finding a way to have a conversation locally. Just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Yeah, really useful. Thank you, Guillaume, for that. Great. Yeah, Thomas.
Yes. Hi, I'm Thomas van Wijnberg from Aquafed, the International Federation of Private Water Operators. So we are a special animal in the GWOPA Alliance, suffering from a number of constraints over many years, but we are considering ourselves a partner and an advocate. And so I wanted to make two suggestions. One is, it's not necessarily for this week, but maybe for the steering committee next week, is that we really need to bolster GWOPA's visibility in a range of, let's say, upcoming seminars, events like the World Water Forum, but also intergovernmental agenda. So we stand ready to help you on that one, especially for the Bali Forum. And anybody in the room who's interested can catch me after the meeting, because we're involved in the thematic processes. And I think we see a lot of opportunity, especially in Team 5 on finance, and also on a range of activities in targeting the next generation leaders. And this is the point that you were making about not being in control of the budgets, because it's your chief administrator or your chief mayor who is in control of what kind of WOP he wants to be involved in. And I think it's, I'm no longer a next generation, I'm too old right now, but I think there is potential in utilities, private or public or any type, where you can look at the potential of the future, and where you can actually build some thematic areas for WOPs to be involved in, where you say, okay, we know that this and this person has a career path that is being developed inside utilities. People are looking for performance, but people are also looking for talent. And I think we spoke about that at the Congress, is that the war on talent is huge, and it's not just managerial, but it's at all the levels of utility management. So I think we could build a program on that, targeting existing programs and working with organizations like Women for Water, etc. The second point that I would like to make is an advocacy for when we go into the next phase of EU-WOPs, for example, is that you would really package it into something that is very digestible from a commercial side of promoting it with potential new WOP mentors, because we often find that when we speak about it, it's quite complicated to explain. I had a discussion with one of your colleagues a couple of months ago, and we said, let's build a little package where we can do a half-an-hour seminar for utilities that may be interested. And then we should target the right persons that could be in charge of this, put them in the same virtual conference room and say, look, okay, this is what you can do. This is how it's going to be promoted. And from our side, what we can do is, well, identify the right persons and bring them together. So it's an open invitation to do that for your private sector constituency. And I look at Milo, and I think some of the utilities in Acqua Pubblica Europa would also be interested if we can do this jointly, because this is the whole spirit of the partnership and the alliance. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Thomas. That's great. Great to hear. And thanks also for the suggestions. I think it's also great to have also your leg up for advocacy and in general, and not to forget that we have some events coming up like that. Maybe you will also, I'll leave that to you to kind of highlight some of those. But thanks for all those offers, and we're always really appreciative of the linkages. And okay. We have, we have, okay, I'm sorry guys online, that always happens. Mélodie d'abord.
Yes, thank you. So I agree that it could be interesting to as I said, as a network, PSO can contribute to disseminate the information and to bring maybe new local authorities involved in WOPs. But I am wondering what is your plan for communication? Maybe a specific webinar to present how the call for proposal will happen, the schedule, the rules, etc. I don't know if you plan to do that. If it is, I can bring a lot of local authorities, maybe interesting. And again, I would like to emphasize the 2 points that PSO noticed. That we think it could be an issue for local authorities to get more involved. First of all, is the problem of financing the staff, the internal staff, as I already said. It's very important because, yeah, we can have consultants, but internal staff is very important. And even if there is a political will, sometimes if there is not enough funds to make the technical staff directly involved, maybe sometimes not real WOPs, and we see a lot of this kind of partnership in France. And the second point is to have a mutual benefit. It's some of you already talk about that. It's a really key point for French local authorities to get more involved. They have to see mutual benefits to justify in France why it's important for them to get involved in WOPs. So yeah, to come back to the first point, I really would like to communicate more about this call of proposal, but it's difficult to find the information, to know what information and how I can share more to the PSO network.
Mélodie, thanks a lot. I appreciate that we're hearing a lot about communications. One of the things that, well, I have to say the ROM review suggested that we'd done really well was the outreach, because we got such a good response. And we did do a lot of these kinds of calls, these quick calls to different groups upon request, and we'll make sure we do that again. We'll make that really available. This is for the EU-WOP program in particular, but I understand that your comment may be, and Thomas as well, maybe more broadly about WOPs and the whole WOP possibility. So let us also take that up. In a general way, it's definitely, not the easiest thing to say in 2 words, but it is something we always try to do clearly and succinctly and in a way that people understand and can relate to. So looking forward to really connecting with you more on that. Thanks for those comments. Milo. And sorry,
Yeah.
Milo, before you start talking, we'll take Milo and then anyone for a very quick final word after that, and then we're going to close up so we can finish on time and have some lunch and people can take their trains and planes back. Thanks, Milo.
Thanks. Since we are at the end, first, thanks to GWOPA for organizing these very important 2 days meetings. I mean, a lot of food for thought. Quick reaction to Thomas, just to say, but of course, yeah, we are of course happy to team up with you, and the objective is common there, and there is all advantages for both organization and other organization to advocate together. By the way, let me say also I'm jealous that I see that you are there. Maybe next time we could start by coordinating how to go to Bono in other meetings of GWOPA. That would be useful. A quick reaction also on what Maria and then Claudia was saying about the opportunity to have the possibility to have more mentors sharing the task and sharing the burden. I mean, the burden, the activity together for the same project. This is something that we have been advocating for the first WOP phase, and that was recognized in the awarding criteria for the selection process of phase 1, whereby there were more points, let's say, for those projects involving more mentors. I think this should be strengthened and reinforced also in the second phase. And maybe there is also a role also for organizations like ours to be more active in promoting these kind of things internally. I mean, maybe we didn't give enough visibility. Then we are at the end, but I would like to have the opportunity soon to follow up in the chat also with the development agencies, and particularly also I had a chat with Frederic during the break, but also there are questions that I would like to make to Guillaume following what he was saying, because I think it's quite important. And one question for me that is standing there is that Guillaume said, like, okay, in the past there were examples that work and other examples that didn't work of joint project and triangle between a development capacity dimension and then the development agency and the bank, the development bank. I would like to better understand those cases where this triangle worked, why it worked, and what was the triggering of this good relationship. Was the project coming from a request from the operator and based on a previous WOP or capacity development activity, then building on this, there was the financial dimension, or was the financial dimension coming first and triggering the capacity development thing afterward? I mean, if there is a pattern on this, maybe there is not, but if there is a pattern on this kind of triangle working, it's something that is worth exploring. Thank you.
Great, Milo. Thanks very much. Final round, final hands. Everybody's good. Oh, Marie. And anyone else who wants to speak, please raise your hand in the next 10 seconds.
Just again, also food for thought. To what extent, given the emphasis on the local demand in this call, is there going to be any consequences administratively? We've talked about this. Is the lead partner going to be receiving the funds still the mentor? Are we considering alternatives? Is that even worth looking at? Because also from some conversations, also there in some cases, of course, bringing that burden, as we are calling, on the mentee side can be good, but it also can be again heavy to sustain. It's just food for thought. It's not any. It's just to keep in the discussion.
We had a good conversation in Kigali at the IWA Development Congress also on this question. What if we gave the money to the mentees or the beneficiaries and they managed it? There's a challenge around that because most of the money is actually paying for the staff time of those who are voluntarily supporting, not those who are receiving funds. So that it would be basically a deviation of funds. That's the challenge there. But it's an interesting question. It's interesting to think about how it might be turned on its head a little bit. So keep these ideas coming. I think it's really important. And I see a final comment from Emra. Did he raise his hand in time though?
Yes, I did raise the hands. Just maybe on this, I think a lot of people complain, mentor utilities complain the administrative burden on utilities to manage funds report, and maybe some way to look at other intermediary solutions that sort of like actually does that coordination. And
somebody needs to mute their
monitoring.
microphone. I'm sorry,
And
we can't hear you, Emma.
You cannot hear me?
Somebody needs to mute their microphone and then you can continue. Go ahead. Yeah, okay, go ahead, Emra.
Yeah, so I was thinking, so we might need to look at the other mechanisms where the organizations actually does this monitoring, reporting, and logistics arrangements, coordination, because that's what takes most of the time of the mentor utilities. Instead of focusing on technical work, they end up spending a lot of time on the project management, coordination, and employing the staff. So maybe there might be a way to take out that functions from those utilities instead of asking them to see how they can actually focus more on technical sides, but less on the other sides. But I don't have answer to that. The one other food for thought might be, because we spoke a lot about financial linkages and the way to work with the development banks or bilateral development agencies, access to other resources. There might be a way to maybe have some pilot sort of WOP with some sort of like, funds allocated, certain type of the WOPs that we can engineer that process with financial institutions, financial mechanisms, and then also strong commitments from the beneficiary utilities to co-finance, not as just kind of like in kind, but with a bit of, determination, with a bit of better commitments to scale up this approach. I'm thinking, of course, this could be a way to maybe link this phase more strongly with some of this initiative like Urban Water Catalyst Initiative, but also maybe other banks. How do we get utility graduating from the WOP to a more sort of like towards more investment related activities, implementing larger sort of like funding opportunities. So we need to basically maybe see with this phase whether there is opportunity to actually test some of this approach with a couple of utilities, with some of other partners, instead of implementing usual WOP approach across the board with a new fund. So I think that's also something that we could also test it.
Thanks, Emra. Thanks, Emra. And Kennedy, I'm sorry, but you did not raise your hand in time. So we are not allowed to take your question unless it's something technical that we need to know before closing. Okay, we'll close up. You can put it in the chat if you wouldn't mind. And then we need to close up. So I'm going to hand over to Osa. Just before doing so, I just want to thank you all really from my side. The inputs have been fantastic and I appreciate it a lot. And Osa, over to you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. I'm going to be brief because we've talked a lot. We've discussed really, I think, many good ideas. I hope everybody feels, enriched by this. And many people have to catch transport modalities. So just very briefly. Firstly, we wrapped up already yesterday, but many of the conversations flow from yesterday to today. So just as a quick recap on that, we're going to be sharing back with you some of the ideas that came from there, and would like, we'll give you just a few days to feedback into that in terms of some of the very concrete action points that came out of that. Some of us in the team in GWOPA Secretariat, we were very inspired yesterday, and we said we'll have to look and pick 2-3 areas that we would put some of our time. This is based on discussion yesterday. And I would just like to encourage those of you here who may then want to also pick up some of the ideas. Please do think about it and reach out to us. One example just being this CEO Utility Forum as an example, but many others as well. So just in terms of what happened yesterday. Now, moving on to today, again, it's been very rich discussion. Leading the GWOPA team, the Secretariat, really want to thank you for the very open comment. I think it's really useful. I think it's been, really open exchange. One of my biggest takeaways is that the dropping part is not so big. So then I would be worried. I mean, we're not like, let's just change, drop this. No, it's really, it seems to me we're going out of here collectively that a lot has been going well in phase one, and we all want to continue, and now we want to improve. I mean, that's my main, and I think that's what the EU sees as well, which is why they're choosing to continue this program. So I think this is really the spirit, and now it's about, some of it is about improving processes, admin, whatever we're talking about, but some of it is about, I would say, more enhancing, capitalizing more, getting more out of it, which is a little bit two different things. And I think we need to look at that in the design phase. What are we actually improving in how we plan to implement this program, and what are we doing in capitalizing other potentials, and how much can the design of this program phase facilitate that? And how much of that belongs in a broader continuous dialogue with the GWOPA Alliance, So I think just for us to manage the ideas coming in. I want to remind us that we're doing a bit of a hop-on, hop-off tour also in this EU-WOPs Phase 2 consultation. So this was the first stop with the European-based organizations, and we're continuing because, of course, there's many partners globally involved in the EU-WOPs. So we will be going to Africa, Latin America, Asia, etc. on a tour, let's say, hand in hand with Arnaud, and we're just scheduling those. So this kicked off the first one, and there will be other ideas coming in, feeding in, and we hope when you see the design of this next phase that you see your ideas, and that we're managing as well as we can to capitalize on all the thoughts coming in from you. In terms of sort of very concrete steps, we will send you a follow-up note, but we would really like to limit it to another week, just specifically on things that you said here today. Then, of course, if you come up with other things, please be in touch. But we limit this particular discussion to, one more week of feedback just for our documentation of things. I find it very, interesting, and I think we really need to dig into this. I know it's been a discussion from before, but whether to keep the word of mentor and mentee. I know that's been looking at my colleagues, discussed a lot. It came up again. We hear that we want to have more south-south and triangular type of WOPs. At the same time, we have an opportunity to have more partners in Europe. So I think it's all about just having more WOPs, basically, in the end, because we want to do both. So I really don't think it's one or the other. We need to look at the exact composition of things in the EU-WOPs program, but it's about more WOPs and not to limit ourselves in that way. I've heard in some other forums, it's called eye-level partnerships. I like that very much. You're like on eye level on the ground doing the WOPs. So I think in a narrative, in terms of it being mutually beneficial, and we talked a lot about that yesterday, I'm picking up a lot of feelings around that, and for us to look into that a little bit more also in this program. I'm not going to go into the investment component, but it's clear. I mean, this is coming up a lot. I think very concrete ideas about a meeting with development agencies and development banks will definitely pick up on this part. We've heard about that. And maybe to end, I feel that Arnaud put it really, really well in the way he opened his introductions this morning. Not to forget why we're here. The SDG 6 is one of the ones that are off target, and we're not in easy times globally either. It's not helping. And, the WOPs are just proving to be efficient and a good way to work in the spirit of solidarity. So I think, I'm walking out of here that there's a lot of opportunities around this, and my colleagues kind of are tired of hearing me highlight this pledge we did in the New York Water Conference in March, but we did make a pledge. And ultimately, it's about scaling up, to at least 100 more service providers being involved in WOPs by 2030. And it's not going to happen by us only, even if we implement it excellently, this EU-WOPS program as it is designed now. We need more. So please join us. You're already with us on it, but please stay with us to scale this up. I think we can really scale it up. We're hearing a lot of good ideas on this, and we will do all we can to create the forums and avenues, for that to happen, and also to advocate more. That's what we discussed a lot yesterday. Just to close, just on a few things coming up. We hear about the World Water Forum. GWOPA Secretariat and UN Habitat will be actively present there. Look forward to discussing that more next week at the steering committee meeting. And perhaps this is, a calendar of event seems like a very easy, practical way of sharing with this group and strategizing a little bit around how this group presents themselves and what we do. I want to remind us that GWOPA is having the General Assembly. The date is not totally confirmed, but looking very likely to be the 3rd of November in Cairo. And before that, we will have steering committee elections. So any of you who feel like, wanting to be part of that and influence more and etc., this is the moment in time. As I mentioned yesterday, the General Assembly is back to back with the World Urban Forum. And this is very important for the discussions we've had here, because that's where local authorities will also be. So this is the chance to start looking at more of a nexus of dialogue between utilities and local authorities. And I think we should think about what events, how could that look like in Cairo? And we have enough time because that's in November. And for those who are not members of GWOPA and want to join and be in a more continuous influencing conversation with us around the work we do, please do consider joining us as a member. It's free to be a member, and we're looking forward to grow and tap tap your enthusiasm for WOPs on a more continuous basis. So I think I'll just close there. Thank everybody. We will be sharing back as much as we can everything we've gained here. And today was about the EU-WOPS program. We really hope that we will be working on it together, many of us, and to shape it to be something really transformative moving forward. Thank you. Thank you. And safe travels back, of course, I should say. And I've thanked the team already here, but just a big thank you, especially to Julie, who's been leading this program and this event, and to all our colleagues from the WOPA side as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.